Good morning, everybody, and happy Workers' Day. We hope we can say that. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Well, to all the workers out there, the real workers are right here in the studio. Good morning. Well, not just in the studio, I guess. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maukwe Ogun Yusuf. Happy Workers' Day to you.
Well, let me add another icing to that. If it's your birthday, let's celebrate you as well. So happy birthday and happy Workers' Day. You're having a birthday on a public holiday. How much better could life be? I am Akine. Good morning and welcome.
Well, yes, indeed. So look at the temperature. We don't know if, the economic temperature may not be exactly the best, but about 28 degrees centigrade this morning. Humidity equally looking like 75%. So kind of humid this morning in the city of Abuja. And so you can see where at least the where labor workers will be meeting much later today, not too far away from the Federal Secretariat in Abuja. So traditional scenarios and all of that will be going on much later today, which we'll also keep tabs on. But all the same, a very good morning it should be, wherever you are, in any part of the world. Glad to have you join us today.
Well, I hope the workers are able to make it to the parade ground. I also know they converge in different states, maybe in the stadium in the different states that we have of Nigeria. But, you know, on my way to work today, I did see very lengthy queues at the filling station. I'm like, oh, what a way to spend Workers' Day. I sincerely hope that workers are able to make it there and that they're able to get some rest today. I guess that will pass on the demands that the NLC and perhaps the TUC too will be pressing for today. Well, we'll see how that eventually pans out. But yes, as you said, the Federal Secretariat right there in short, it will not be very busy today, but the square around it certainly will be seeing plenty of activity as workers will converge there later today, or later this morning, in a few minutes, I guess, to be meeting and pressing home their demands to the Minister of Labor, who should be addressing that particular gathering. I think usually they have the president, but these days, more often than not, we see that the Minister of Labor is the one who's sent to represent the president, representing himself as well or herself, as the case might be, as well as the president. It'll be interesting to see what eventually what they say today, because there's been talk of, is it a wage award now? Or is it minimum wage? Have they been able to agree on something? I guess we'll be able to get more on that shortly, Kimberly.
Okay, well, I guess we'll see how that plays out. So yeah, we'll go ahead and take a look at what some of the dailies right now. But we also need to, okay. Yes, we'll go ahead and have a look at some of the dailies this morning, but of course, don't forget the platform is also going on right now.
Well, yes, just as Chamberlain said, Channels Television is panning now to the May Day edition of the platform organized by the Covenant Nation. And of course, yes, as Chamberlain said, we go to the papers.
Okay, let's go ahead and check out some of the dailies this morning. And we'll start with Daily Independent. FG approves 35% salary increase for civil servants. That is a big one on the front page right there. Vanguard, May Day. FG approves pay rise for workers as labor leaders lament hardship. So, well, yes, I had to expect that is the big one right there for quite a number of papers because it's May Day. Nigerian Tribune, equally in the same path. FG approves 25%, 35% salary increase for civil servants. New structure to affect workers on remaining 6 consolidated salary structure. Yeah, that's a big one you find right there. But beneath that lead story, petrol scarcity, marketers to flood markets with 300 million liters. Ipman agonizes over 200 billion naira debt. So there you go. Well, this Nigeria, May Day, sad day as workers groan under hardship. So quite a number focusing on May Day. Daily Trust, May Day. NLC rejects 35% pay rise, insists on living wage. committee yet to submit report on minimum wage. Its worst moment for workers, ascribed to Atiku. Reps, MBA students reject electricity tariff hike. You also see that one there. Or The Guardian, endless wait for living wage, inflation. Naira depreciation plunged Nigerians to lowest wage earners. So they've got a table with which they compare and how they arrived at that lead story on their front page here today. Business Day, petrol crisis mutes workers' day as scarcity sting lingers. Motorists, commuters, businesses suffer. Nigerian workers have never had it so bad, ascribed to Atiku. Or leadership, fuel crisis, scarcity may worsen over 200 billion naira owed marketers. NNPCL blames speculators, say 30-day supply available. Lawmakers invite Tinubu Lokwabiri over scarcity. Interesting one, isn't it? Okay. Blueprint, Northern governors on insecurity. We must develop our economy, human capacity. Consider command and control center revitalization of NNDC. With political will, insecurity surmountable in 6 months. Described to Bamiyi. So that's the perspective of Blueprint this morning. Have a look at New Telegraph. Mayday. FG increases salaries, pensions for civil servants by 25/30%. Backdates payments to January 2024. ASU demands better welfare for Nigerian workers. Asks FG to hold brain drain in varsities. Kalu commends workers' commitment to national development. Nigerians subsidizing corruption, inefficiency in government, ascribed to Atiku. And then beneath that lead story, electricity tariff hike. NBA to institute legal action against FG. NANS to protest against blackouts, others May 7. South-South governors urge government to review poor supply in Niger Delta. Nasarawa Assembly orders AEDC to restore light to communities within 14 days or quit. So, there you go. But those are some of the dailies this morning.
Okay, so there you go. That's some front pages for you this morning, but not to worry. We're going to go ahead and bring in the president of Nigeria Labour Congress, who is joining us virtually this morning. Already the wage award announced by the government. We've seen some dailies also reporting the perspectives of labor. Let's go ahead as well and bring him in. Good morning, Conrad. Thank you for joining us on the program today. And perhaps we can just say Happy Workers' Day, can't we?
Yes, Happy Workers' Day in that situation.
Okay, no matter what, we have to keep our heads up. Well, the government has announced this increase, 25 to 35% already. We get some inkling that Labour may not exactly be happy with that. So let's hear from you directly. What is Labour's position on this matter?
Well, I think the announcement now appears mischievous because there's no wage increase that government is announcing. It is like having an annual increment, harmonization of a particular pay between the core civil servants, and the public service. And then the other, the public service are being paid, for instance, for some time now. And suddenly you want to equally add in the core and the non-core civil service for them to start receiving at the same rate. Some others were collecting, and suddenly by yesterday, the government decided to add even the military and paramilitary and few other sectors the same money. Now that does not translate, to now a new salary scale, because some others are equally getting that rate before now. So for them to announce it now, it's an issue that we are worried at the NLC and even I think the TUC are already there.
So we understand that some discussions were ongoing. So could you give us an idea? What was the mindset? Where were all the parties in terms of the agreement? Where was he headed?
Well, the discussion before now on the issue of national minimum wage, has been on the best way. In fact, Mr. President promised that he was going to give a living wage to Nigerian workers. And the last minimum wage of 30,000 expired on the 18th of April. And then by now, we are assumed to be on the regime of new minimum wage as of today. And then discussions were supposed to be concluded. The federal government would have, through the National Assembly, legislated on it before now. But we saw that the discussion entered voicemail because the federal government, refused to reconvene the meeting that was adjourned. We had public hearing in the 6 geopolitical zones, and we came back to collate, the submissions. And the committee asked NLC and TUC to do their submission, which they did, and came up with about 615,000 naira. Now, the moment they got that, up to this moment, no meeting had taken place, and we're moving into this. So the minimum wage payment is in arrears, whenever it is concluded. So that's where we are.
Well, I understand that Labour was still asking for living wage. What would living wage mean?
Well, living wage is such a wage that would at least keep you alive. It's not a wage that will make you poor and poorer. It's not a wage that will make you to borrow to go to work. It's not a wage, that will lead you to be in the hospital every day because of malnutrition. That's what we mean by living wage.
How much?
And we have tried to look at 615,000. If you want me to give you a breakdown, I'll give you a breakdown.
Go ahead.
Yes, we asked for a housing and accommodation of 40,000 naira. I will ask for electricity of 20,000. Of course, that was before the current tariff increase. Nobody can spend even this amount currently. We look at utility, that is about 10,000 naira. We look at kerosene and gas of about 25,000, 35,000. Looked at food, for a family of 6, we looked at a food of 9,000, for them in a day. It's like that will amount for 30 days. We are talking about 270,000. Look at medical, 50,000, provided there will be no surgery or whatever. And then clothing, 20,000. We looked at education, 50,000. I don't know, for those that try to put their children in a private school, they will not be able to be covered by this. And sanitation of 10,000. So I think where we'll have another bulk of the money is transportation, because the workers stay in fringes. And because of the cost of PMS and whatever, that amounted to 110. And that brought the whole thing to 615,000. And I want anybody to subject this to any further investigation and find out whether there will be any savings when you pay somebody on this rate.
Well, I don't even know where to start, Mr. Joe Ajero. Let me start again by wishing you a happy Workers' Day. I like your outfit. I mean, I like the fact that every May Day, workers usually have, no matter how deary it seems, no matter how bleak or whatever the quarrel might be or disagreements might be with the employers, I always like the fact that Labour always makes a showing that day in the outfits that they choose.
Textile union.
Yeah, the textile union is working, certainly. This fabric is made in Nigeria, isn't it?
It's Nigeria.
It is made in Nigeria. And I like the fact that all workers who come to the square, they usually have different uniforms. How does the NLC pick its own?
Well, we just have a committee that meets and decide on the best fabric because this is our Christmas day for every worker in the country. Indeed,
it is. It is very colorful. It is very colorful indeed. But so also is the minimum wage that Labour is asking for. It's a very colorful one. If government can implement it, I mean, certainly everyone should be looking at how people can have a decent wage, something that can actually keep them going, something that makes it worth their while to be at work. I know that before now, you had proposed 1 million naira. You had even said 1 million naira, might be around where minimum wage should be. But it does appear that you've gone back now to look again at the numbers, and you've come to something around 635,000, you said?
615,000.
615,000. Okay, I was taking notes as you were as you were doing the breakdown. But, you know, there are big questions as to, you know, first, how minimum wage is decided, the kinds of workers we should encourage to be on a minimum wage level. Because when you look at the kinds of work that is being done around that minimum wage, what a country should be aspiring to see is that its workers are, you know, productive, its workers are well educated, they all can get, you know, how do I put it now? They all can get a better source of income, etc. They're not just at that level. This should be for people who maybe, you know, have no way to get an education, etc., etc. I don't know, from your own thinking, when you look at minimum wage, who do you think are the workers that should be on this level? Have you really given a thought?
Well, the minimum wage is a universal practice. It's not just Nigeria. And there's a standard by the ILO. And for some time now, there has been a struggle for us to widen the scope of it, you know, up to domestic workers, what we call domestic servants. The ILO legislated on it. You know, yes, it is the least that you can pay to any worker, you know, those that are down there. And what I mentioned here now, you know, what I read out to you, in fact, if you take the issue of even accommodation of 40,000, you know, that will give you close to about 400 and something thousand, which you can get in somewhere down there for a room and whether a room and parlor or a room, you know, with toilet and bedroom, you know, for a family of 6. You know, those are the people that are down. Unless you are trying to make a provision for those that will live under the bridges, you know, but that's not it. But somebody must stay in a room. This provision is not for somebody that will stay in a flat, you know, all that I read out now. And these are the realities of the moment, the people that are down there. So I felt that in analyzing it, took into cognizance, you know, that these are the least paid workers that will get this. You know, but then as people grow up, they graduate. If you are to take this to somebody that will live in a flat or in a duplex, you get a different scenario. You know, and it's important, you know, we look at it from that angle. And you mentioned the issue of 1 million. You know, when you mentioned the issue of 1 million.
Mr. George, comrade, let me just hold you a bit. Just let our viewers who are currently viewing on our DSTV platform know that we're about to launched a platform which has been hosted by the Covenant Nation, and that will be airing on our DSTV platforms and perhaps some of our online platforms. The conversation continues on our terrestrial platform. It does continue on our terrestrial platform, and you might be able to see this later at 1 a.m. This conversation will be going on. The Covenant Christian Nation will be going on all platforms. Thank you. Mr. Comrade, you are saying something, given the explanation about the minimum wage, the 1 million naira which you were talking about, and what was supposed to cater to and not cater to, and you say it's an international practice. And what we usually know, and that's something we've also, we've also asked why, you know, the NLC here in Nigeria hasn't advocated for, is why, you know, there's been no advocating for being paid by the hour, which we see happen in a number of other countries, which gives workers on that rung or people who would earn a minimum wage by the hour to be flexible, to be able to make as much of it as they can. You know, we see the practice, at least in most Western nations, wages being paid. In Canada, it's paid by the hour. In the UK, it's paid by the hour. In the United States, it's paid by the hour. In many European countries, minimum wage is done by the hour. But in Nigeria, it's usually advocated for on a monthly basis. Why does it remain difficult to, you know, to advocate that workers? Because some people will say it gives them more flexibility. That way, they will be able to finish a task somewhere. They are not held there. They can go and earn more money elsewhere.
No, I don't think that's far from it. You see, in terms of what, if you pay people 600 now, you can reduce it to hours. What it amounts to per hour, whether it amounts to 50 kobo or 1,000 per hour, you can do that. I don't think that's where the issue of flexibility comes in. The issue of flexibility from what you are saying is that, you can get work for 2 weeks in a place, and then you go to somewhere, or you can work for a place for 2 hours or 3 hours. I think that's where the hours come in, not in terms of the payment. You can be working in NITEL or in MTN, and today you have only 2 hours to do work there. And at the same time, another office you can work even in a bank where you equally put in another 5 hours. And at the end of the month, you collect money here, you collect money here. It's possible, it's doable. But even at that, even getting a work, a high unemployment level in the country, getting a work even for 1 hour in MTN or even in any bank or whatever has been at the center of the issue. And if you look at it, Nigerian workers, like you asked before, are highly trained. And that's why we are crying of brain drain. The ones that were able to leave this country are doing well and they're in high demand. So if we had to bring it back there, because every country determines, how they pay their wage. In the US and other areas, they still pay people every 2 weeks, their salaries. Here we wait for month end. So even the month end, here, they don't even, in some places, they don't pay. Months, 2 months, 3 months, they don't pay. So I think it's the efficiency of the country, in terms of wage management and employer-employee relationship that can determine whether instead of paying salary in a month, you pay it every week. Whether instead of working in one place, you can work in 4 or 5 places, which is more or less not permanent, but you work, occasionally here, occasionally here, and you get your money, you make some money. And that has to do with even some level of professionalism and expertise.
Comrade Ajero, most times when we talk about labor, the mind and the general conversation usually goes in the direction of salaries, money. And it begs the question, because a number of people would now be wondering, is that all labor is about? Just salaries and welfare of their workers? Exactly what other issues should we be focusing on May Day, it's Workers' Day, and as well as what should those issues, how should those issues reflect on the federal government, state governments, and private sector operators who have employees?
Is that a question or comment?
It is a question.
Okay, and why we should talk about wage on a
I'm saying it seems like every Workers' Day, the only thing we talk about is wages and salaries. Should that be the only thing? I'm sure that there are other issues that you would want Nigerians, generally, federal, state governments, even private sector operators, to focus on, other than just wages.
Well, a worker, when he finishes working, you talk about productivity. And then after working, you earn a wage. Now, after working, are we going to talk of any other thing? It is the work that brings productivity. It is the labor that creates the wealth. And when it creates the wealth, you pay. So that's the end product, of the action of the job that was done. Now, we can't be talking of any other thing. We can't be talking mathematics. We can't. We can't be talking law. We talk about we have worked for 2 hours, we have worked for 3 hours, pay us. And when you don't pay us, we say, no, we have worked for 2 hours, we have worked for 3 hours. You are not paying us. And as it affects government, and probably the regulator and the employers, if we are taking, if it's taking us 1 hour, 1,000 to move from point A to B, and you come up with policies that it will now take us 3 naira or 3,000 naira. Now we're going to tell you that we can't come to work again because we don't have money again. So those are the issues that they are talking of, a wage, naira, whatever. The issue of productivity, more often than not, are done at the workplace. How many hours you are putting in place, what you are supposed to do, assuming you're a teller, how many clothes you are supposed to make in a day. Those are not things we are going to come for May Day and be discussing. Those productivity issues are discussed internally at the shop steward level.
Well, I'm looking at CNBC TV right now, their website, and they said what it says there is that Labor Day or Workers' Day is to raise awareness of the rights of working people and to protect them from exploitation. It is also intended to motivate initiatives aimed at improving workers' working conditions. That's why I'm asking that question. I'm very sure that the working conditions of the staff of any organization, even of the labor office, is more than just wages. How about the working conditions? How about the other things that help them to be as productive as you say that they are? How about the boss subordinate relationships and all those things? Is this something that we should also pay attention to? Because it's one thing to earn a salary, a day's pay. It's another thing altogether to enjoy the job you're doing. Don't you think so?
You are looking at there are issues that are universal, and they are the ones that are industry specific. The condition of service, getting buses, that are supposed to carry, people to office, talking about Medicare. It may be perfect in company A, and company B is not perfect. But we're discussing it here now. We won't come to this place and say, a man Nigerian Limited, they are not paying housing allowance. We'll equally agree on the issue in principle that there should be housing allowance for maybe 10,000 naira. That's what we're doing. But when we come for May Day, Workers' Day, for the whole country, those are not things we are going to be discussing now. We're going to discuss the issue of that. The welfare you are talking of invariably ends in wages, and the worker getting his wage, worker getting his Medicare, worker getting his transportation, and all that. Those are some of the issues that we look at holistically. We're not going to come here now to say company did not pay, company B did not pay. Yes, they exist, but we aggregate all these ones and bring it to the fore. But at the center of it is the wage. How, if you are talking of health, Medicare, how much is a company providing, for a hospital for the workers to be treated, or are they monetizing it? How much does it translate to? In that order, what of the transportation to the place of work? Are they having staff bus, or are they monetizing it in terms of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? At the end of the day, all this welfare, still come back to Naira and Kobo.
The reason I'm asking, and honestly, I do get, the argument you have put forward, Comrade Ajero, and I perfectly understand it. But the reason I'm asking this question is to let people know that the Nigeria Labour Congress is a lot more than just asking for wages. The Nigeria Labour Congress is also about productivity, not just of their workers, but of the organization. Because when an organization makes enough money, when the country makes enough money, when the workers are as productive as they should be, or even more productive than they're expected to be, it is natural to expect that labor doesn't have to go on strike or even make demands before salaries are increased. The Lagos State government's example, for instance, is one. That's why I'm asking that question. No one should ever expect labor or any workforce to go on strike or make demands. They should know their rights. So that's why I'm talking about productivity. In what way or ways do you think that the labor force themselves, the workforce themselves in an organization can be more productive or more ingenious? What are the challenges that they are having that militate against their productivity in that organization before the boss would be expected to take any initiative?
Every industry have their own index for measuring productivity. There's job analysis, there's job evaluation that determines every cadre. If you're a driver, the mileage, the number of people you are supposed to convey is determined. And these things are things that are done already. The same thing as a manager. Even for those that are marketers, you are given a target on what to do. They are industry specific. The measurement of, productivity are measured at that. If you're equally a reporter, the number of stories you bring in a month, equally determines your productivity and even your salary increment or promotion. These ones are determined at the industry level. So that's the point I was trying to make, that is not something we come to, to the Eagle Square to now start to give analysis on productivity. When the productivity of a driver is measured differently from the productivity of an accountant, on and on. But every industry, every company, have their own, a way of measuring productivity. And that is how they evaluate workers. That is how workers even get salary increment, promotion, and what have you. So it is clear and it is known and it is relative in most instances to either the job you are doing or the nature of your industry. Those are clear about it.
Well, one of the functions from what I have in front of me right now, one of the missions of the NLC is to promote and defend democracy, probity, and transparency in the trade unions and in civil governance. How well would you say Nigeria has done between May 1, 2023 and May 1, 2024 in that regard?
Well, you can look at it from every perspective. From the trade union side, we have lived up to expectation. In the history of this country, maybe during the Babangida era, that time it wasn't labor, it was from the civil society and the student level. When Babangida said there was a student, there was a civilian coup. And during Obasanjo's time, he said Adams is forming a parallel government. And in the last few months, the president of this country came out to say we should wait for him in 2027. You can't just wish away that you can, and I tell you that at every instance, despite all odds, despite barriers of court injunctions and ways of trying to clip the hands of labor, despite attacks and abduction of labor leaders like some of us, we have stood our ground. Despite threats, the last protest and rally you saw, it was a direct protest. If you come out tomorrow, you have a date with history. And we came out. So we're going to do our best to make sure that we protect democracy. And even when we protest, it's for the government to accept the other view. It's for them to know the other view. It's not for destructive purposes. So those are some of the tenets of democracy. Protest, having another view, having alternate views. And labor has not been found wanting on this. So, but it is not our duty, to now pay somebody a salary of what he needs. It's not our duty equally to provide vehicles that will fly the roads. But through our advocacy and agitation, some of those things are done. That is what we are seeing, and we have not abdicated in that responsibility.
So now that government has made this announcement, is Labour going to say, well, rescind it, increase it, remove other persons who you've joined, or come back to the table? What next, moving forward?
What government announcement they made is like a circular in a ministry that says we are paying 20 people and 5 departments before this amount. This amount is now, we are trying to add maybe 2 other departments or the remaining departments and the remaining people this amount. This coherence is what is happening in the civil service, but they have now added the core civil service. It is not wage review. It is not minimum wage. It is nothing. The minimum wage affects those in private and public sector. That is exactly what has happened. In their last exercise, they didn't add those in the paramilitary and few other places. So they added them. And the unions have been advocating for this in the last 4 years when they were paying some sectors without these other ones. Now they decided to announce that they are going to pay the other sectors. It has nothing to do with the wage configuration in the country.
All right, Comrade Joe Ajero, President of Nigeria Labour Congress, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Subsidy is gone.
Fuel subsidy gone. Cost of living on the increase. Workers in Nigeria have been clamoring for a pay rise. The organized labor has argued that the current minimum wage of 30,000 naira is no longer realistic given the galloping inflation in the country.
We can't pay school fees with 30,000 minimum wage.
The pay today literally is nothing.
In response, the federal government in January this year inaugurated a 37-man tripartite committee to fashion out a new national minimum wage for the country.
Our objective should be to surpass the basic social protection floor for all Nigerian workers, considering the sustainable payment capacity of each tier of government and other employers or businesses.
We don't have any figure in mind. We want a very, very realistic approach.
But what will be considered a realistic national minimum wage is the big question the committee has to answer.
We are going to have a wide spectrum of consultations with recommendations to be made that at the end of it will be acceptable, fair, implementable, and sustainable.
While the federal government may have the might to pay whatever is eventually prescribed by the committee, how about state governments and the private sector players? In a survey conducted in 2022 by Budget, a civic tech organization in Nigeria, at least 12 states out of 36 were in breach of the 2019 minimum wage of 30,000 naira. Hence the call for a holistic approach to the formulation of any new minimum wage.
We are operating a federal system. So whatever minimum wage is recommended will be subject to how each state, now considering its peculiarities, decides to implement it.
When the minimum wage was 7,500, not all the states were paying. When it was moved from that to 15,000, not all the states were paying. When it doubled and we now have 30,000 minimum wage, not all the states are paying. So what has the labor NLC and TUC, what have they done to those states?
Already, the organized labor is proposing a new minimum wage of 615,000 naira, which the committee is expected to present to the president. Meanwhile, some state governors have gone ahead to announce a new minimum wage for workers in their state.
For us in Edo State, we have decided that we will move minimum wage effective May 1 to 70,000 naira.
The 2019 national minimum wage regime was supposed to have expired on 30th of March this year, and a new minimum wage commenced. However, the report of the tripartite committee is yet to be laid on the table of President Bola Tinubu for further action and legislation by the National Assembly.
We demand that the Committee on Minimum Wage should hasten their activities so that a new minimum wage will be put in place. This is the only way that the economy will be reinflated.
Stakeholders say while that is being expected, caution must not be thrown to the wind by making sure that adequate consultations are made.
We need to tread very carefully, decentralize the negotiation, have federal government negotiate with the NLC at the national level, agree to a position, have the state secretariat of NLC TUC also negotiating with the state government, and come to an agreement.
It's imperative that all areas of concerns are addressed before a blueprint document is formulated eventually. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
Okay. Welcome back to Sunrise today. Yes, as you've seen there, we've got Mr. Jacob Pelle, who is the founder and CEO of TAF Africa. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today. And happy Workers' Day to you, too.
Happy Workers' Day to
You're really great founders. Happy Workers'
all of
Day.
us. All of us. And all of us
Day.
who are also employers of labor. But I celebrate the resilience of Nigerian workers and workers across the globe. They've been very resilient in fighting for their rights and celebrating their achievement and moving forward to keep the tempo of demands on whether it is the private sector or the public sector.
And speaking about demands, you just heard the president of NLC reel out the demands of government in terms of the living wage, as they call it. He gave that breakdown and challenged anyone. Yes, for those who think it may be high, if you look at that, can anyone save any money even with that. He thinks, look, that's the barest minimum they can go. What do you think of that?
Well, I was listening to him with rapt attention, Chamberlain, but my concern, just like I expressed before we came on air, is how will the private sector be able to implement this? That, to me, is a huge concern. And I think it's something that NLC will also help in trying to define, because I am an employer of labor, and there are certain people in my organization that I can afford to pay them that kind of money, not because I don't want to pay, or because I don't have it to pay. So we need to be very circumspect about proposals. Have the workers, the today workers, do they deserve that? Yes, they do. But we need to be very realistic and follow through what is doable.
Indeed. Sadly, we couldn't explore that conversation further with Comrade Joe Ajero, and it would have been very interesting if we could, but we do know that these are really tough times for Nigerian workers. First, it was the removal of fuel subsidy, and we just saw how everything went haywire afterwards. Is it the price of fuel affecting everything? And now we're dealing with the availability. I was just making a comment at the beginning of this program that a lot of workers might find themselves queuing at filling stations today to try and make sure they have something for the rest of the work week. And this is a situation that we found ourselves. So from your own assessment, how would you say that workers can keeping it together in spite of the difficulties that they face?
Well, the resilience of Nigerians in particular. There's this assertion that we're the happiest nation on earth. No matter what the pressure is, we will keep going, irrespective of the hardship. I think Nigerian workers have been trying to keep their head above water. It's been very difficult. For instance, in my own workforce, I had to scale down a lot of things, including giving my colleagues, as I call them, extra 1 day off within the week. They had to work from home. And also you have to go extra mile to provide incentives like what they need to buy the data to be able to connect and work virtually. And so the Nigerian workers has been trying hard to keep up with the times. And these are challenging times, there's no doubt. But they are making the best of it, even though we are complaining. There is that complaint about the hardship and all that. But people are making the best out of the war situation. I think there's a need for government to really do and take a deep dive and know what the challenges are and
you don't think that they show that they do know what the challenges are?
It depends. Sometimes Aso Rock can be another prison. and so the people in there don't really know what people are going through. And other times they're also being deceived by people around them, telling them that they are doing well when they are not doing well.
But we heard the president say time and again that he knows the times are tough. He knows that the challenges are there. He owns the problems, according to him, and that, yes, they will do what they can to get us out of the quagmire.
Well, Chamberlain, is one thing to say you know. It's another thing to do something about what you know. The president may have good intention, but oftentimes those good intention does not translate to action that brings relief to the general public and the masses, the poor, the poorest. And so my concern is there's a need for them to take an introspective view of some of the policies that they are rolling out and do a test run, do a stress test to see whether these policies are aligned with the aspirations of the people, whether it is implementable, whether it will give them the results that they're expecting, other than the issue of you roll out policy and the next minute is somersaulted, and you know, at the end of the day you're rejigging, you know, and all that, which is okay. In some quarters it's all right for you to present an issue, own up the mistake, and try and make amend. I will tell you that even God, the Creator, if you follow the Bible, some people say Holy Book. I like to say the Bible. You know, if you follow the Bible, you will find a situation where God made the first covenant and came back to say, look, I found fault in the first covenant, so I made a second one. So it's important for you to follow the process. There's something that Michael Okpara, that used to be known as the political Iroko, said. He said, first fool, no be fool. Second fool, na proper foolish. So if you keep making the same mistakes, getting the same result, that is foolishness. And I'm not attributing that to the president, but I'm just saying on a general note.
You know, sometimes I'm sure that Nigerian workers, even though, yes, the Nigerian Labour Congress and all the other labor unions do their best to speak for them, do you think that there ought to be perhaps an alternate channel where, because sometimes I don't know how that works. We know that the Nigerian Labour Congress most times, you know, represents the interest of government workers. When this minimum wage is, you know, discussed, most times the people who are hard-pressed to implement it are government officials, government at the federal level and also state governments. But, you know, that really applies to, you know, the private sector is supposed to take a cue from them. But as you've said, it can be a bit difficult. Do you think that perhaps there ought to be an alternate channel for, you know, for really discussing what the issues are with regards to the needs and the aspirations of workers, especially on a day that's reserved for them?
I think, Mawgwe, the labor force is one very trusted channel when it comes to negotiating on behalf of the workers. The problem is not with the channel. The problem is when there is no holistic, comprehensive, and inclusive conversation, making sure that everybody concerned are seated.
Brought on board.
Exactly. So I think introducing the concept of an alternate channel is almost like perpetuating what the military and some past government have done, get into the labor force and infiltrate and then break the labor force or use it as a political tool to unseat some of these decisions and then create confusion within the labor rank and file. That is not acceptable because that is also very undemocratic and will also stifle the good aspirations of workers that are led in an organized manner so that they will have one single voice. There is nothing wrong with one single voice if that single voice has a multifaceted approach of getting things done. There's everything wrong when you have several voices trying to do the same thing and at the end of the day they don't get it. When 2 or 3 visions exist in an entity, it's called division. You won't make progress. You know? And that's why my principle in life is always reference to God. God gives one vision, and that one vision can grow and have a convergence effect. You know, I mean, your channel is number one. There's one channel TV, but several outlets, and it's working systematically, strategically, giving John and the team the result he expects.
Thank you. What would you expect government to do in order for them to actually demonstrate that they don't only say that they know what the problems are, but are seen to be doing something to address the challenges?
Well, I'm not, I won't claim to be an expert in communication, but if you ask me, I will start with communication. If you don't have strategic and effective, efficient way of communicating your views and letting people know what you want to do, one thing you get is misunderstanding. And when there is misunderstanding, you will find people casting off restraint. And so, first is effective communication. While you're also trying to deliver effective communication, there's a need to look at the content of that communication. Again, I draw my inspiration from the Bible. There's a scripture that says, I will give you a mouth and a wisdom. A mouth represents skillful communication, being able to deliver. A wisdom represents the content with which you deliver that. And that's why the likes of David said, you have made my tongue a pen of a ready writer. You know, and I'm sure, I'm not trying to preach, but I'm sure there are Quranic references to this, just to balance it. But however, you know, effective communication is necessary. Making sure that the policies meets the aspirations and the yearning of everyone, ensuring that those policies are not something you release today and it somersaults tomorrow. So content of that policy is very important, ensuring that ownership, that everyone that you're trying to make policy for will take ownership of that policy and drive it to a conclusion. The other one is proper implementation. You know, I mean, I can go on and on and on.
Of the policies.
Okay. Yes, yes. If you make policies and those policies are not implemented, they are just nothing but a stack of piece of paper.
So, but the challenge is that there's a school of thought that says, look, with respect to policy implementation, yes, you can have good policies, but you have to have people who can implement those policies. So if some of them are in certain positions and you don't hear them say anything, and you don't hear them follow through or lead the charge to show that they actually understand all of those things. So people wonder, wait a minute, shouldn't you actually look to the people who are in certain positions as well? Because if they knew that, I'm sure many of them know that they have to communicate. So, but if they don't know how to proceed, if there were political appointments just to, because you have to, of course, ensure that you also keep your political machinery going.
Yeah. Well,
so where I'm leading to is, should there be some sort of rejigging of this cabinet to give it a lot more verve and oomph, so to speak?
I think, to be honest with you, and boldly, there are non-performers in this cabinet. And the president should do exactly what he said he would do, fire them. I've been employing labor for over 42 years. And one thing that I've learned is that if you can't fire, don't hire. And so people must be bold to tell someone, you're not doing what you're hired to do, therefore you have to leave. You know, and so if you have the wrong person trying to do the right thing and the person doesn't have the knowledge, there's no way that person will deliver.
Which of these ministries should we have a spotlight on?
Well,
have a second look.
You are driving me to a point. Well, there are a number of them that are not performing. I mean, Nigerians are there. The scorecards are there. You know, when I woke up this morning and I was getting ready for this broadcast, I did something very... I did a fact-checking of the various promises the president has made just this year. And it will be interesting if you want me to talk about that. But however, when you have one, it's like broadcasting, Chamberlain. If you put the guy who doesn't know what he should do right there on your seat, it will be disaster. It's not a question of saying I can do it. When the time comes, your inadequacies, your incompetence will show. Obvious. So it's not like I want to be seen on TV. A young woman called me the other day, I want to be seen on TV. I want to work in a certain station. And then she said, oh, everybody on that station doesn't know what they are doing. I said, look at you. I'm just talking to you. You're not even giving me the phonetics and that is required in broadcast, and then you're saying everybody doesn't know what they're doing. So the point I'm trying to make is, when you're hired to do the work, do the work. If you cannot do the work, the person who hired you, that is keeping you there, is responsible for your incompetence, period.
I like that. I like the sound of that. But let's go back to the issue of wages, because you have said that what Labour is asking for could be a bit unrealistic when you look at what the private sector, could be able to pay, or, using yourself as an example, as an employer of Labour, especially for the cadres that they're asking for it for. And according to Comrade, he says the practice of minimum wage is something that is obtainable all over the world. We've seen how there's been big arguments in Nigeria as to whether to remove it from the exclusive list and put it on the concurrent list. That is still a subject of debate because some state governors or governments argue that they are unable to pay because the federal government's wage is set too high, and they think that different minimum wage should apply in different states. But Labour argues that no, it's a minimum wage for Nigeria, and it should obtain wherever in Nigeria you are. That is there. But then some people have also argued, why can't this minimum wage be hourly? As we've seen happen in many other climes, we've seen happen in many other places. The examples that we cite, we like to often cite. Minimum wage oftentimes is by the hour. It makes even workers that have regular jobs and, seem to be high up the, the work cadre, sometimes take up these jobs to be able to meet up on their own ends as well. So in Nigeria, why do you think that conversation has been very difficult to have?
Again, just to make my point, I'm not going to stay here and be arguing against a huge organization like Labor Force. I'm not of the opinion that what they are saying is not realistic generally. But however, my postulation is that we need to be circumspect to carry along the private sector, all right, that I can guarantee you maybe 40–60% of the private sector employer, like myself, may not be able to pay everybody across board. So you're saying this 615,000, a gate man, that you probably, maybe you hired him or her through an organization, and all you're paying is maybe 60,000 or 70,000, as the case may be, or and I can guarantee you that there are people that I've spoken to that don't even earn up to 40,000, and so,
which is sad.
It's very, very, very. I mean, sometimes when I go to shop with my wife and I'm telling my wife, I said, we just left here and this is how much we are paying. So I sympathize with even the person that I employed as a driver, how much I'm paying him at the end of the month. That is not even enough to buy certain groceries that I want to buy for my household, So it's going to have some challenges, but while the labor union is pushing on government to do this, they should also please bring the private sectors and have a discussion. How are you going to also implement this? Because once the government implements this and takes it up as a law, you understand, it will be to the private sector. And unfortunately, these private sector don't have the resources to meet the needs of this kind of demands. And I keep saying that it's only in this part of the world that we think that the drivers of economy are the government sector, the public sector. The private sector drives the economy of every nation. The private sector determines what the economic direction. They provide, they have the largest workforce, they are the big spenders, unlike what happens in Nigeria.
Government. Well, government spends a lot in Nigeria, and oftentimes the private sector looks to government.
That's part of the problem that we have. The government is the big spender, and sometimes, and most times, reckless spender, because what it costs them to run the government, especially even in this government, is unnecessary. It's too much.
All right. That didn't quite answer my question, though, because I was asking about paying hourly. Is it something that you've thought about? That if, for instance, a cleaner who works in an organization could work here for a few hours, has a fixed job, and then goes somewhere else to, also make a few more hours. Do you think it's something that will ensure that the worker...
Of course.
Why do you think it's so difficult for us to have that sort of arrangement, especially for workers who are earning at the very minimum?
Well, I'm sorry that I didn't address that, but it's practicable. I'm doing it. My cleaner comes in the morning, and by 12 o'clock, she's gone. Goes to another job. She gets paid for that time, both at home and in the office. We had a guy who had been with me for about 11 years. By his grace, I've been able to move him from just being a cleaner to getting some certification, and he's a professional cleaner. So he got to a point, he says, look, I want to go and open up a cleaning business for myself. And I said, okay. He left. So at that point, I made a decision to outsource the cleaning in my office. And we spoke to a cleaning company, and all they do is they send someone who comes in the morning, cleans the office, provide all the things that we need. By 11 a.m., she has closed. Go into another job, So invariably, that person is earning per hour, because if he doesn't show up by 7 when he's cleaning the office to 11, or definitely because it's contractual, he will not earn that day. All right. So it is doable. It happens in society like America that we all go to from time to time, and everything that we're trying to copy is almost patterned like that of Americans. So why can't it work here? It's doable. Where there is a will, there will always be a way.
Ayo.
Well, Dr. Pele, one of the issues that we raised, and I think Markwe has also raised one or two of those issues with you, that we discussed with Comrade Ajero earlier. And the question is still a little troubling for me, because looking at the mission statement, or maybe even the objectives of the NLC, I'm wondering whether or not you think that the only thing Labour should be thinking about should be wages and nothing else. He talked about the importance of productivity of the workforce. And so I'm still asking that question because I'm still a little befuddled. Why is it that the only time many Nigerians hear the Labour speak is almost always only about wages? Is that something concerning for you?
Oh, you're my good friend. I'm not part of the Labour Union, even though by way of advocacy and all that, I support them. And in a few minutes, once I'm done, I'll be joining the NLC at Eagle Square. However, I think the only thing that makes us see the Labour Union on camera all the time has to do with either negotiating with government over minimum wage or some other issues, as the case may be. However, that's not the only thing they do. The only thing is that what you see all the time in the issue of minimum wage is camera friendly. And so you see them on TV arguing or maybe trying to create strike or embark on strike or one thing or the other. But I don't think that's the only thing they do. For instance, I've engaged the president and his executive on workplace discrimination, and I got their support. As a matter of fact, we were working on a policy on issues around disability in the workplace. And the current president then, who was the vice president, was actually the chairman of that working group, which my organization was providing. So there are other things that they do behind the camera, other things that they do behind the curtain. And I don't have all the information to outline those things, but I can guarantee you from a point of a little knowledge that they do beyond the negotiation and living wages and either trying to confront government on economic matters and whether it is human rights issues. That's actually what they are set up to do. They are set up to protect the rights of workers, protecting them and their human rights, and also to celebrate the achievement of workers and do what they are doing today, protect, conduct rally, and do the needful for the common good of the labor force.
Well, that's cheering, and I'm one of the reasons I actually asked that question was to get the sympathy, well, maybe understanding more like of Nigerians who are not in the civil service, even those who are in private sector practice, such as yourself, to understand that it's not only concerning wages and salaries that you hear the labor movement. They have more functions. Part of their objectives also talked about what they do in the area of entrenching democracy and all of that. But you also talked about discrimination, and one wonders whether or not the labor movement generally even has that kind of drive in their advocacy. I give an example. A couple of times we've heard of some organization belonging to either Nigerians or some foreigners with Nigerians on their workforce, discriminating against certain workers one way or the other. And that goes on and on and on until some of these issues burst on social media. And hardly do we ever hear of any labor movement around that. So you spoke about communication the other time. How significant is that, especially in the area of discrimination at the workforce? I beg your pardon, at the workplace.
Well, you're absolutely right, and I knew you were playing the devil advocate, because you do know other things that they do, but as a balanced journalist, you always take your viewers into consideration. The workplace discrimination is a huge issue, and very, very, very little have been done about workplace discrimination, and they are across board, even at private or public institution, you find workplace discrimination entrenched, and you find a situation where the boss feels that he has the sledge, he has the hammer, and he can do and undo, and the rights of people are trampled upon, and they don't find any means to seek redress. And so you're right, many organizations are looking the other way. And I think this is also a clarion call for the labor movement to get more involved in issues around workplace discrimination. It's entrenched within the labor force, and something has to be done about it. Not only workplace discrimination, sexual harassment of women in the workplace. And in some cases, you'll find women who are also employers of labor creating some sort of harassment against men. And so these things has to be addressed head on, and there's no better time than now. So it's a clarion call for the organized labor to look into other areas. There are several areas, not only issues around discrimination, there's also accessibility, accessible environment, workplace for people. There's also lack of provision of certain basic needs of workers, There is also issue of not paying their entitlement, issues of not giving them, simple things like leave and leave allowances, And in the other way, there's also the issue of the employees not behaving well. So there has to be a balance. And I think if I'm in the labor force movement, I would create a specific mechanism, maybe organ, that will address issues like that. Perhaps they have, but we need to know those organs and see what their powers and, of course, their ability to implement these measures that we're talking about today. I think the Human Rights Commission also has a role to play when it comes to enforcing the rights and privileges of workers. It's all part of human rights intervention. So it's across board, just like an organization like yours can stand up against certain values that are not really people-centric. I think it's everybody's business to ensure that workplace discrimination is holistically addressed.
Well, Dr. Pele, just one more troubling fact or information for me before I give it back to Chamberlain and Mark with you right there. I had reason to do a bit of research on staff retention, particularly in small businesses. And I found out that one of the reasons that make people quit their jobs, well, part of the reasons that make people quit their jobs could be salaries, but higher wage comes very low on the list. It was very surprising. For instance, I'm looking at the research now where quite a number of people, about 7,000 employees were taking, they got the data from them. Number one, the study reveals that about 50% of more than 7,000 employees quote that the reason they quit their jobs was because of bad bosses. The second one says too much workload. Third one, no recognition at work. 82% actually say that they lack recognition towards their initiatives, and that is why they decide to switch jobs. So I would expect, I would have thought that it's one of those things that should concern us when we celebrate Labor Day, when we celebrate May Day in Nigeria. Now, my belief or my understanding is that when we celebrate May Day, when we celebrate May Day, we're actually looking at the past 365 days and reviewing what we have done and pretty much setting agenda for the year ahead. So in the light of what we have now, based on research, this is research-based information, do you see anything that labor can or should do about it? The employers themselves should do about it, maybe at the federal, state, or even private sector levels that are not being done right now, or that we are just paying lip service to, or as Chamberlain would say, paper over cracks?
Well, I was laughing and keenly listening to you because let me begin with myself as an example. I took a deep dive. My organization, not my business entity when I was in business, I'm no longer in business, but my organization is 20 years old. So I went back to check how many people that I've employed are left and how many are still here and why did they leave. So what I did could also be my hindsight, on what I can offer as solution. First, I didn't blame everybody that left. I first of all looked at myself as the leader of the organization. I also do have one that has been with me for over 26 years. So she made a transition from my business to the organization that I still lead. Another is about 20 years that we started together. Another is 19 years. Another is 17. Another is 11. Another is 5. There's also people that just spent 6 months and they left. There are also people that spent 1 year and they left. And so what I do, number one, is to take an introspective view of how I am leading. Is it something that has to do with me? Is it something that has to do with the organization herself? Is it also a sort of misunderstanding of the vision of the organization and the person's personal vision. This is very important. You know I don't have all the time to delve into this, because one of the things that I've come to understand in my several years of running organization and leading people is that when people don't have their personal vision does not align with the vision of the organization, there will be a total it's a total disaster. So you find, that person may not necessarily be envisioning what the organization, but at least let there be some connection, let there be some relationship, because if there is, that person will be fulfilled. I agree with you that sometimes money is not the issue, but in Nigeria today, I can tell you, I'm not trying to fault this thing, but you will find out that there is a greater percentage of people that will not work in certain organizations because they don't earn what they are expecting, especially in my own industry. In social development sector, there's a level, some sort of payment that people need. So the issue is when visions are not aligning, when people don't have the same vision, when there is a toxic situation in the environment where they work, that also can make people leave. When there is no discipline in the organization itself, that also can make people leave. When there is insecurity, when people are not free to speak and express themselves, they wouldn't want to work in that organization. And I'm telling you, you're a journalist, feel free, do some covert investigation. In my organization, for instance, everybody knows that they are free to walk into my office and tell it the way it is. And sometimes I've had some of my line managers walk into my office and said, "We cannot do this, even though you have approved it." And I said, "Why?" He said, "Because it violates our process." And I said, "I'm so sorry," canceled. So leadership requires that you have the integrity to reverse yourself, even when you think you've made a decision and that decision does not align well with the policy of an organization. So there are many reasons when people don't feel safe, when people don't have the liberty to speak their mind, when people don't feel respected. Part of the things that we also do, we're going to do even this coming week, is bonding, where we take all the staff, we go all out. At that moment, nobody is CEO, nobody is a cleaner, and we just unwind, get some food, eat, talk to each other, and all that, So there are many, many strategies, not one size fits all, that anyone can adopt to ensure retention. And Ayo, you and I are Christians. You also know that retention is a huge issue, even in churches, and I'm sure maybe in mosques. So you find a situation that every Sunday you have 3,000 people come out to say, oh, they just came to the church for the first time. And go and do a study. Not half of them will come back to that church. So it's a big issue that borders on either the organization or the person working in the organization or the environment where the organization is located or the economic realities within the country, or it could also be spiritual issues and health issues. Whatever the issue is, I think it behoves on any and every leader to ask himself or herself a simple question: why are people leaving, and what can I do to retain my staff? And I think also it's important to note here that everyone that leaves my organization and several organizations, my HR and myself will sit down and conduct an exit strategy. We want to know, why are you leaving? And we want to know, where are you going? And sometimes in such meetings, you'll find someone probably break down or say, look, I'm confused. I think I didn't make the right decision, And oftentimes the person reverses himself or herself and continue. But oftentimes when you know that this person has made up his mind or her mind, and the person wants to leave, it's also very advisable to leave those who wants to go when they have made up their mind that they want to go. My mantra is, some people have to go for you to grow.
All right. While at that, don't forget the Suma Dam. I think it's a fantastic spot. You can go hiking as well, so they can let down their hair.
Well, I don't choose.
Relax.
I don't choose for them.
Yeah, maybe they're listening, so they might.
I just follow them.
They can pick some of these things.
Yeah.
You know. All right. So there you go. It is Workers' Day, so we'll be looking to see beyond the usual rhetoric that governments come up with on days like this, because they're already gathered right now. We can see that they're all there. I think the VP is also going to be there since the president. But we'll see how that eventually plays out. So thank you for coming on. Mr. Jake Capella is the CEO and founder of TAF Africa. We will be back in just a moment. Stay on with us.
Man-hours wasted owing to the current scarcity of premium motor spirits in the nation's capital has adversely affected the commutes of persons and services. As is always the case, black market operators who somehow find a way to access the product have a field day, making brisk businesses. They sell to those who can afford at 1,000 naira per litre, above the 680 to 690 per litre at the pump. Visibly frustrated residents share their experiences.
The queue is much. We cannot be able to buy the fuel, which makes us to be using a gallon, going to one filling station to another to buy the fuel. Then the experience makes us also be buying from the black market, which they are selling very expensive. And what caused all this is just because of the scarcity of the fuel. These are the main experience I have, and we are suffering seriously also, because when there is a scarcity of any items, it causes the increment of price also.
I don't know exactly what I will say, but it's very unfortunate that the pump price is high, and we are still queuing up, and we don't know the result of that. So we don't think we're supposed to have queue with the large pump price.
It's not easy. We have been here for more than 2 hours now. They lock gates before we beg them before they open the gate for us. So we have been going around all Abuja town. It is only here we can find the queue is very less. That's what we are here for more than 2 hours before we can get fuel.
They also have a message for the government.
Please, they should try and intervene for this problem we are into. We know they are trying their best, but at least they have to do something based on this what masses are passing through, especially in Abuja. The queue from, when you are coming from airports in different directions, coming from Kubwa, a lot of queue. People are lined up trying to go to their working places, but there's no vehicle because there's no fuel for them to take to move from one place to another.
Not talk more of the higher price, but the scarcity is there again. I don't know where we are heading to. So please, I beg the government and I beg Mr. President and his cabinet to look into this matter very seriously.
Although the cause of the current scarcity is unknown, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, in a statement released yesterday by its Chief Corporate Communications Officer, Mr. Femi Shinoya, insisted that there's no cause for alarm. This may be another factor to help Nigerians take the transition to CNG-powered cars more seriously. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
After 2 years of renovation, the Green Chamber wears a new look. Lawmakers are all smiles as they return for their first plenary session in over a month. The Speaker welcomes his colleagues with a speech. While he acknowledges the current economic and security challenges in the country, he highlights the plan by the House to boost its effectiveness and relationship with their constituents.
June 2024 marks a significant milestone the 25th anniversary of Nigeria's return to democracy and uninterrupted legislative governance. In celebration of this historic occasion, I'm pleased to announce the inaugural House Open Week, scheduled for June 2024. House Open Week will provide an exceptional opportunity for elected representatives to engage directly with the citizens we serve, discuss their concerns, and share insights into our legislative work.
Next, the House considers a motion of urgent national importance on the fuel scarcity being experienced in parts of the country.
Urge the House to invite the Honorable Minister of Petroleum Resources and all relevant stakeholders in the petroleum industry to appear before this House chamber to bring Nigeria to the real food plate in this current fuel scarcity and avoid its recurrence in the future.
Another matter of urgent national importance considered is the hike in electricity tariff. The House resolves to ask the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission to suspend the increase. The House also resolves to set up a special committee to organize a hearing on the price regulation of the Nigerian electricity supply industry. The Speaker at a summit organized by the House last week had said he would sponsor a bill to ensure proper processes and consultation in increasing tariffs in the country. The House has now adjourned for a week. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
All right, we've got Mr. Konan Olarinwaju here with us. He is the National Public Relations Officer for IPMAN. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chamberlain.
Well, this is another time that many just keep wondering. They don't understand why we have to keep facing this. No, just look to us, don't worry. So, for instance, this scarcity, we've had different comments, including from the NNPC. So from your perspective as IPMAN, what did you find as the cause of this scarcity? Go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers. The question is the cause. You see, the situation is petroleum sectors. There are chains of deliveries. There are chains from importing the product getting to the depot, batching the discharging, prepare the ticket. If there is any problem along the chain, even if it is one day, it has multiply effect on the supply. So that is how it started. It was one of the chain that was broken.
Which of the chain?
The supply chain. And
supplies from NNPC.
Supplies from NNPC. But there wouldn't have been problem if we have to be practical and we should be reasonable on these issues. There wouldn't have been problem. Nigeria would have not known. NNPC is the sole importer. Now, there are some challenges along the line before now that is not exposed to the public. So is one of the one of the implications of those problems is what transfer and it goes out to the public.
What are these problems?
Okay. One of the problems, the NMDPRA, when we are about in February, we have challenges with the renewal of licenses for the marketers. You know, IPMA have about 75% of retail outlets in Nigeria. So if anything happened to IPMA, it will have effect. Because other sectors like major marketers, retail, they can't fill up the gap. So they start with that renewal license. We're supposed to renew, but they just jack up the price for about 500, 600%.
Didn't you get any prior communication?
No.
Was it directed to IPMAN or both IPMAN, MoMA, and everybody?
What we are aware is our own. We don't know of MoMA or whatever. But when we got to know this, we tried to approach them. But the management, they were not ready to discuss with us. And even in the Petroleum Industry Act, the B, if you want to increase any level, you have to have communication with the stakeholders. What he did is illegal. So we thought we should talk to our member to slow down so that we discuss. But we are not giving audience. So that was since around December. November, December, that is when they knew. So we are trying to discuss. So by February, when NATO have strike, you see, in the industry, NATO, IPMA, PTD, we work together. So an injury to one is an injury to all. So when there are issues in NATO, everybody was involved. So when we go to the minister to discuss about the NATO issue, we come up with our own issue too, that this is the problem that is going on. Now, the NMDPRA, they are owing us about 200 million. You're supposed to pay all this money. It's not government money. It's not government money. I don't know. You see, an individual is the problem in this country, not government most of the time.
An individual?
Yes. Yes. Not government.
But the individual is in government.
Of course.
So it's government.
No, you see, the issue is this. This man, this particular individual, has been in the industry for a very long time. He has been
NMDPRA?
No. He has been in this thing, NMPC before, and retail and whatever before he retired, before he get to that NMPDRA. We know he's anti-design. He will not come up, he'll just be having issues. That is not why he don't create issues. Now, we want to discuss with him. We couldn't get any audience until when there is crisis, the minister call us. When we are with the minister, we raise our issues.
Pardon me. Before the NATO issue came,
yes,
which you seized the opportunity, Ipman, and then spoke to the minister about this problem. Why didn't you bring the problem to the minister before the NATO issue?
No, we were trying to reach the office of NMDPRA, but it's not forthcoming. They didn't give us audience.
So why didn't you?
So when we get to the minister about the crisis, the sector industry, the crisis then, now the minister was asking about, we told the minister the issues. And the particular about the money is owing us. And the renewal, he said, no, we should not discuss the renewal here. Why should it be this? This is family affairs. Why can't you go to his office and discuss it? So let's just handle the issue of money that we want to look at the way to pay the money. We said, no problem.
Sorry, wait. Are you saying that an individual sits down, unilaterally fixes this price, and all IPMA members have got to comply? Is his way or the highway?
Yes. So that's the issue. Now, within our members, about 70% of our members were not able to leave product before now. Because you can't access NMPC retail portal when your license is expired. That is what is happening before this crisis. That is what compiled, that is what caused all this problem. A lot of marketers will not get product. Now, if you want to get product, you have to go to private depot. Even if you get to private depot, they will check off.
When was the last time that there was an increase in that fees?
Before now, before this present one, I think it's about 3 years ago. And it's just a marginal increase.
So that means it was due for increase, but it's the procedure that you're faulting.
Yes.
Not that they should not increase it.
The increase should not be as high as like 500, 600%.
That's one of the issues you said.
It's one of the issues.
Which one is the other one? How many issues are there?
The other one is the private depot owners issues. You know, NMPC supply them product. When NMPC give them product, if you go to any filling
when you
station,
say they don't have filling stations, they only have depot. They have tank farms, but nowhere to sell.
Some of them have retail outlet. That's where I'm coming to. Some of them that even have a retail outlet to sell. If you know what they are selling at that station and know what they are selling to us, it's too high. And so when we don't have any other choice, when we can't get from NMPC, we have to go to them.
Private depots, okay.
Yes.
So how are they the problem?
The problem is, you know, when you get to any filling station, you see the price tag. You can't see the price tag in any depot. And NMPC have a platform that in my house, I can check and pay money and do transaction. In their own, you have to go through third party.
Why?
Because they don't fix price. They don't want you to know the price. The price is going up every day.
They're not transparent.
They are not transparent. This thing is about figures. We're supposed to know, Nigeria is supposed to know. DSS is all depot. They're supposed to know what price are they selling. If private depots sell, as at now, as at yesterday, some of them that have product is selling about 850 naira. When you put haulage, your transportation cost, how much will you sell as a retailer?
What are these third-party people called?
They are faceless.
But you buy from, how can it be faceless?
That is
where you buy from?
That is the risk we are taking. That is the truth.
You buy from faceless third party?
No. You see, they do it as somebody that is doing the orca.
I'm still not clear. So there's petrol in the private depots or fuel in the private depots.
Yes.
You cannot approach the private depot owners to buy directly.
Yes.
You have
Even
to
if you approach, they will not give they won't give you their account number to pay into directly. You have to pay into through someone.
Why?
That is that is the problem we are facing in Nigeria. That is Nigerian factors. That is what I'm saying.
No, it is those individuals factor. Because there are several Nigerians who are doing good things.
Yeah, Chamberlain. You see, in what I'm saying, there are some government agencies that cannot deny they didn't know, they are not aware.
Of all of this?
Of all of this.
Do you think they settled those individuals who know?
I don't know. I don't know.
Why did they keep quiet?
That is why I don't know. Because if you don't import for a product, there is no new product, you are just discharging. You are selling your old price, old stock. And you are selling as high as 850, 800 naira, 700 naira. When we hear this price, we can't imagine it. So can you imagine somebody in Abuja that want to transport the product from Lagos to Abuja? How much will that person charge? How much will he sell it? Remember, there is nowhere they manufacture money. You access money from bank. And bank interest rate now is 28, between 28, 30. You have to add all these things up.
I'm just a little curious. Is it also Ipman that is saying that the government needs to pay them bridging costs for?
Yes.
It's Ipman as well.
Yes.
Well, we're not unaware of the rates that were increased, because when this issue came up during the NATO strike, indeed, I think we spoke with Ipman in that period, and they did talk about the renewal rates and how it was exorbitant. Yeah. But the argument then was that they were trying to see, just like banks now, that the CBN has now told that your recapitalization for the different categories, depending on what category you belong to, has now gone up. And you have to go and see how to raise funds from different parts. They are saying that they want only very strong players to be in the petroleum sector. That's what we're hearing from the operators. And that they want, it should not be an all-comers affair. And that's one of the reasons why they have increased the licensing rates. Is this something that, amongst members, are you discussing to see how it is that perhaps, because it's only one licensing fee that will be paid at the end of the day. If maybe, say, 50 members come and bear one name, for instance.
No, it's not like that. You pay license for each of the stations. Each of the filling stations.
It won't work like that?
Yes, you pay licenses for each of the filling stations.
So it's not per
company,
name?
No.
It's not per company?
Yes, it's per the station.
It's per the station?
Yes.
That is interesting. So how does it then strengthen the sector, if that's the argument that the regulator is making?
No, you see, this issue is a constitutional issue. In the PIA bill, you cannot unilaterally decide to increase any levy. It's there. They know it's there. You're supposed to call the stakeholder and discuss. Because there is nothing new you can tell us. We know everything. If you want to say anything about the cost, the expenses, the rates, so we should know how to discuss and agree on particular. The issue is not in any normal situations. The high is too high, it's too much.
The reason I'm asking this, because you have said this is per station. Yes. My colleague asked you earlier as to whether it affects Dapman, Moman, and all these other people. You say you don't know about them.
It will affect them. Definitely, it will affect them.
Because
I'm not speaking for them, but definitely it will affect them.
So if this is per station, it will be across board.
Yes.
But they haven't said anything.
They may not say anything.
You don't think that this is a time when you should bind together and see how it is you can make your voice stronger, since it's cutting across board?
You see, IPMA, the government that creates independent petroleum marketers, it was the government making. Before then, it was the multinational that is in all sectors. But they look at the downstream, that our people, Nigerians, are supposed to be a player in this sector too. Because we are at the end of the tail. We are retailers. We are to sell for the consumer. And if you check now, in all angles, in all local governments, you will see my member there. This multinational don't go there. And you see, the source of their capital is much cheaper. Some of them get facility for 1% or 0 point something percent. But in Nigeria, to get money, it's about 28 to 30%. There is no electricity.
So what's your point?
My point is the environment of doing business in Nigeria is more harsh. And there is no basis for any government to try to kill the independent marketers. Because it was the government that created it.
So wait,
for a purpose.
You're suggesting some individuals in government are doing some of these things to kill Ipman?
Yes, deliberately. Yes.
Well, this is the current situation that we have on hand now. There's fuel is scarce, and people have to queue at the different stations. Now that you have said that this is the situation, this is a part of the reasons why the break in the supply logistics, has now been made obvious by the fact that a lot of IPMA members are unable to access the NNPC, the portal, as a result of the expiration of their licenses. Is there a conversation ongoing there now, looking at the fact that the NNPC will want to? I want to imagine that they want to avoid this sort of embarrassing situation in future. Are they having a conversation with you now?
NNPC is having a conversation, but the main problem is this. Since February up till now, our president has been calling the individual. He has not been picking, not until yesterday, when all chairmen have meeting and say they want to withdraw the service again. It was yesterday they then called. That is the problem. That's what I'm saying.
Who is this individual?
It's in the NMPDBPRA.
Is it the chief of the NMDP?
He's the chief there.
You are reluctant to call his name?
I don't need to call names. I'm not supposed to call names.
From what you've said, this fuel shortage that we're experiencing today will not be the last. Because from what we hear you say, that these issues that have not been addressed, of course, there could be another scenario tomorrow, and your members, either NIPCO or whichever group, can still feel, no, this is not right, because some individuals sit down and take certain decisions. So it's going to be difficult for lots of people to imagine that this is not going to be the last one, because many thought they've increased the price of petrol. Nigerians should not be subjected to this very harrowing experience to get this product. Because when they tell us, right pricing, you can't survive with this, people get the impression that once that price, once the regulation is gone, all these issues will be gone. But from what you're saying, we're still far from getting it right. Or what would you want to see done now? Because I know that Ipman has said, give our members product. By the way, let me even ask you, why is Ipman not also directly importing petroleum products?
You see, presently, the importer is so, the NNPC is so importer of the product.
But NNPC has said, look, anybody who wants to, the market is deregulated. Import your product if you want.
Yes. It's difficult because you can't source, if you want to import, it's on dollar. So how will you source your finance? How will you source the dollar?
So
that is the challenge.
Members cannot come together.
Members can come together.
So even if they come together?
Yes, if they come together, by the time you import products, how will you source the dollar? It's in billions of dollars. So when you source it and bring the product, the price is going to high. NNPC have arrangement of importing products. They are not using cash. That is why it's more easy. That's why they can sell it this
What
price.
do they use?
They have arrangements. That is, I don't know, I can't be specific. But I know they have, I know they are not paying dollar to import.
Why can't Ipman do the same arrangements?
We can't do. We don't have that resources. We don't have, our resources are limited. That is our challenge. That is why we cannot even be comparing with the multinational company. There are some multinational companies that can import product from even their partner company in the other country.
How can that be addressed?
You see, it can be addressed if the problem is, by the time you look at the sectors, you discover there is no level playing ground on this issue. When you want to deregulate, everything should be purely on deregulation. If it's not like that, I don't think there is not.
How do you mean? What has not been deregulated?
Can't you see the difference in the price NNPC retail is selling with even the major marketer and the IPMA? It's what we get. It's what we get that we are selling. The retail is selling, NNPC retail is selling, I think, 58, 550, 580 naira per liter. While some major marketers are selling 620.
No, but the regulation
How much
doesn't...
are you selling Ipman, depending on where you are?
It's depending on the location and where we are.
Yes, in Abuja, how much are you selling?
I'm not in Abuja, I'm in Ilorin.
How much are you selling in Ilorin? You have members in Abuja, and you're
Yes.
talking to us here in Abuja.
No, you see, the situation is, it depends on the situations. That is, we are the most disadvantaged part of this sector. That is what we are saying. That is our grievance. That's the challenge we are talking about.
But the regulation doesn't mean everybody will sell at the same price.
Yeah.
Does it?
But the margin should not be much. If NNPC retail is selling 580, somebody is supposed to be selling 600 or 590 or 580, 50 kobo. That's supposed to be the difference. It's not supposed to be 580 and 620. Can you see the difference?
40
or
naira.
640.
60 naira.
Those are the things.
Wow.
You see, when you are the regulator and you are the operator, does it look well?
No, wait.
It's a sensitive sector.
Yes.
They have argued that it's a sensitive sector. They cannot leave it solely
Yes, they
to
should
operators.
not. They should not. But NNPC retail, they should let it be independent. Look for product the way we are looking for. That is how it's supposed to be.
The NNPC retail should be an orphan child when it has a father that has...
That is what of us? What about us? What about us?
Well, it's a very interesting conversation.
Yes, that is the situations.
Yes, it's a very interesting conversation, but I think that what people are really wondering about is the fact that in spite of all of these arrangements, because whether or not you accept, we always see that there are queues at the NNPC retail. Most people don't want to queue for any reason. So they will still come to the independent marketers. I oftentimes buy from an independent marketer because I cannot afford to queue. So when you look at that, you will always have your own customers. If that is the situation, this product ought to be available. So that's why people are still befuddled as to how it is that a small glitch could have affected supply in such a way that even you, that ordinarily you'll be looking for customers, don't even have enough to sell.
That is the problem. It's because all the supply sectors are from Lagos. And can you see how big Nigeria is? NNPC have their own depot, big investment. They have their own depot, but they don't find anything, they don't supply any of those depots again. They concentrate on private depots.
Private depots. That's a very big one that you just mentioned there. And the NNPC only supplies private depots and they ignore their own depots.
If they supply all of that depot that is their home, they don't need to pay anything because they are paying money to those private depots. So they don't need to pay money to all those their own depots. The supply chain will have been reduced.
Let me confirm from you. Would you really say, because there are those who have argued that this subsidy, that there is actually still subsidy being paid, or subsidy is still happening somewhere. Is this something that Ipman is aware of?
No, we are not aware. We have limitations and capability. We are not of that level. Our home is to give us product and sell it. We are a retailer.
All we have heard you say is importation, importation, importation. Why can't you have these products done locally here? Modular refineries, your members can have modular refineries.
Of course, of course.
You can have other facilities.
Of course.
Are they focusing only on importing the product?
No, no. Like Port Harcourt refinery, I think it will come on very soon, within this month. I'm very sure.
Which Port Harcourt refinery?
Yes.
The same one?
Yeah. The same one. It will
and
even Dangote will start very soon.
Okay. Well, we had this. Let me let Ayo ask you the next question. He has some questions, so maybe he knows what I'm thinking.
Okay.
Many Nigerians is let there be fuel. So, well, Mr. Olaniwaju, just one or two issues that I would like to raise with you here on this particular matter. Now, did you see this fuel scarcity coming? We understand that from conversations that are ongoing, this should be over in this week. Do you agree? So two things I'd like you to very quickly address. Did you see it coming, that we'll get to this point? And was it something that could have been avoided? That's on the one hand. On the other hand is, do you agree with those who say this should be over before the end of this week?
You see, the fact of the matter is we see it coming. It's not strange. It's not something we don't see it coming. We see it coming. Because it's when you see what is happening, by the time 100 marketers are supposed to pick product, and it's only 10 that are able to pick, definitely those that didn't get product, they will source what they have. So, and we are the retailer. So when you don't have anything to say, like all my stations now, we shut off for more than 3 weeks. So, and it's not only me, it's happening to so many other people. So
for how long?
To come to this. Yeah. And you see
for how long do you see this lasting?
The funniest thing is, I should not be specific, because as at yesterday, I thought they are discharging product already. But this morning that I discovered that make check, because when I know I'm coming here, I have to make some checks again. So when I made the check, I discover the smaller vessel that's supposed to transload from that bigger vessels to bring product to the depot. I've not yet do that. So, and it takes time to do all those things. Those are the NNPC responsibility, and I think they are on it.
What
supposed to have discharged yesterday.
Yeah. How hopeful are you that this issue will be resolved between today and Friday?
Which of it? Is it the supply or the issue? Because there are some certain things that we are managing before now. And the multiplier effect of it is one of those things that we are saying. If we have 500 marketers or 500 filling stations that are supposed to pick product and are not able, only 10 or 20 pick, they design that all products should be sent to Abuja. You know, Abuja is not only Nigeria. So that is the problem. That's why I can't be too specific.
Okay. Well,
this thing is a simple economics. Demand and supply. When there is excess supply, demand, everything will crash.
Okay, so Mr. Olaniwaju, just one last, just a quick one. Speak to the supply in particular. I know that there are other issues, just as you have mentioned, and it's not just IPMAN that is raising those issues. Almost everybody in the supply chain, in the petroleum industry, in the oil industry is complaining about one thing or the other. But speak to the supply side of fuel in Nigeria. Do you see this particular current crisis being decided upon, action taken, that will ease the pressure on Nigerians between now and Friday? What has to happen if that issue is to be resolved, if the issue is to be resolved between today and Friday?
Today is Wednesday. If they could be able to get the smaller vessels today, I don't think it's going to be Friday. Because maybe today the smaller vessels may have been discharged, getting into the private depot. That is fuel. at the coastal, on the sea now. There's NNPC fuel there. But it's a big vessel. It can't come to the depot. So that was what that, and I know they are working on. Yes, they need smaller vessels to bring it. So, and I know they are working on it.
So it will be what, 2 weeks?
I can't be specific. It shouldn't be up to that. It shouldn't be up to that.
Well,
but when it's say Friday is just 2 days. That's
for
it.
Lagos, for instance. Lagos should get it faster than
any other state, yes. But
so
I can't
Lagos,
be specific about the date. That's it.
But your members in Ilorin now, I mean, as someone who is in Ilorin, when do you think their problems will be resolved there?
You see, our trucks have been in Lagos for more than 3 weeks. I personally. More than 7 trucks are in Lagos as an individual. Like, almost, that is why if you get to Lagos, you discover, like, all the trucks in Nigeria is there. But we can't get the product.
And we also understand that the monthly importation dropped by, I think they said about 54% to 74.5 million liters for the month of April.
It's possible. I'm not aware about the data, but it's possible because the purchasing power of an individual is low.
And from what you're saying now, it appears as though people are making more money importing this product. That's why refineries here will be difficult to get some of them up and running. But
no.
All right, we'll see. So why are we not making it?
I don't think so.
What do we have to do to stop this importation?
If the importation, if not the NNPC that is doing the importations, the price of oil have been higher than this one we are selling.
But this country didn't start with importation.
Of course.
Forget
it. Of course.
We did not.
Of course.
So we can go back to that time.
Yes.
And so it was a lot better when we were not importing.
Yes,
but people are making money from importation.
It's even more comfortable for us as a player in the sector.
To have it here.
Yes.
And to stop importation.
Of course.
Mr. Okola Olarinwaju is the National Public Relations Officer for IPMAN. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, that is the show today. We do thank you all for watching. We hope, in spite of what you've heard, you have a happy Workers' Day, wherever you are. We'll see you next time. Goodbye. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Indeed, make the most of it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. Goodbye.
And I'm Ayo Makide. Do have a wonderful rest if you are having one.